real parents, real stories. It's the Meet the Parents podcast.
Hello and welcome to another edition of the Meet the Parents podcast, bringing you another 30 minutes or so of discussion from some of the UK's top parent bloggers. I'm Tim from Slouching Towards Thatcham, and this week I'm going to be talking to Hannah about her experiences with her newborn daughter Martha, and then I'll be talking to my son Isaac about our half-term adventures in London. Firstly, I'm delighted to welcome back Hannah, who last appeared on the podcast nearly 3 months ago as a mother of one, and is now making her return as a mum of two. Hello, Hannah.
Hi, Tim.
So, we last caught up with you about a month or so before your due date, so fill us in as to what's happened after that, because Martha, like any proper lady, was fashionably late making her entrance, wasn't she?
Indeed, yes. Toby appeared the day before his due date, and Martha decided to throw a spanner in the works and be a good 12 days late. So she actually arrived on the 1st of May. She didn't want to be an April baby, she wanted to be May Day. And I was due to go into hospital to be induced, but I still hadn't decided whether that was going to happen or not, or whether I was going to let things ride as they wanted to. And then the night before I went into labour, and she appeared on May Day.
So compared to first time around, obviously Martha was late and Toby wasn't, but was anything noticeably different with her birth, either physically or mentally?
I felt a lot more confident. I had felt fine for Toby's birth because I've had a pretty straightforward pregnancy, so I felt fairly confident. But still, being it my first time, I didn't truly know what to expect. This time around, I just felt really confident about what I wanted, and things like I knew that they couldn't force me to be on my back even if I needed to be monitored and things like that. So I just felt better informed and better prepared this time. Physically, the labour with Martha was a lot harder. She really, really wasn't going to make it easy for me. So the day before she was born, everything was perfectly in place and it looked as if it was going to be really easy. Actually, when I was in labour, my cervix had gone very far back, which made the labour really, really tricky, and I struggled an awful lot more. I still managed to do it with just a TENS machine and gas and air, but it was certainly a lot more painful, the labour itself, than Toby's, and I kind of went into myself. I was very chatty during Toby's labour, but this time around I sort of went very insular, and I could hear everything that was going on around me, but I wasn't participating at all. So I could hear Phil and the midwife saying about how, well, this is going to be a long one, and we might end up having to intervene, and we're going to be here for a long time. And I'm thinking, oh God, fully expecting it to end in a crash section or something. And then all of a sudden, within about 20 minutes, I just turned around to Phil. This was about 10 hours into labour. I just turned around to Phil. All of a sudden, I came out of myself and just said, right, this is happening, I'm pushing. And within 20 minutes, the waters had gone and she was here. So the labour was harder, but the birth was an absolute breeze, to be honest.
Oh dear, yeah, it's quite a story. So did you find there was stuff about the birth or subsequent to that you'd just forgotten about from first time round?
I'd sort of forgotten about how much I could trust my body. I knew that I'd trusted it all the way through with Toby's labour, but I'd forgotten how that felt. I'd forgotten the instinctive nature of giving birth, to be honest. I know it's not the same for everybody. I have been exceptionally lucky with both of my labours and deliveries that I have just been able to roll with it and just trust my body, and I'd sort of forgotten how empowering that was in a lot of respects.
Yeah, it's funny now hearing you talk about it. It makes me realise actually how much I've forgotten since Cara was born, but I suppose that's now more than 4 years ago. But it does all gradually fade into memory. I guess particularly from a dad's perspective, where the experience is perhaps isn't quite the same as it is for a mother.
There was only just shy of 22 months between Toby and Martha, and yet it's like I had the memory of the facts, but not the feelings, and I think that's quite interesting.
So Martha as a name, is there a story or a reason behind it? And was it a name that you had picked out beforehand?
There's no real story, there's no meaning behind it. It was just a name that we both really loved. It was actually our girl's name choice for Toby, had he been a girl. So we've sort of had it in reserve for over 2 years now, because we had it prepared for Toby for a long time, so we didn't know whether we were having a girl or a boy. And we threw other names on the table, but it was just the one we kept coming back to. She hasn't got a middle name, so it just feels like a really strong, lovely name. And we just kept going back to it and decided to stick with it.
Ah, excellent. So I know it's early days yet, because Martha's only just passed the 1 month milestone, but have you noticed any noticeable differences between her and Toby?
To be absolutely honest, they are chalk and cheese. I don't think you could really get two babies that could be so different when genetically they come from the same parents and, even born at the same hospital and brought home to the same house. Toby, we really struggled, to be absolutely honest. He had awful silent reflux, and he was born at sort of midday, and from that night he screamed and screamed, and we would have 10 hours a day of screaming because he was just in a lot of pain. We had troubles feeding. It was really, really tough. With Martha, she's a lot more chilled out. I mean, she's starting to get a little bit colicky now. We're just heading up to the 5-week mark. So the evening she's a little bit fractious and she's a little bit unsettled. But even so, her version of crying is maybe lasting for 10 minutes and then throwing up a little bit, having another feed and falling asleep, whereas with Toby it was more 10 hours. So Martha even started smiling at about 3 weeks, which was incredible. With Toby, we got our first smiles around 6 weeks, but as I say, he was in quite a lot of pain with his reflux, so he actually then stopped smiling because it felt like he wasn't happy. So just generally, she's a lot more chilled out, and she sleeps better, which is amazing.
Speaking of Toby, how has he responded to having a baby sister?
Really good. Whilst Phil was on paternity leave, Toby kind of rejected me a little bit, I think because I was feeding Martha so much, and I was pretty much just sat there feeding all day every day, so I think he felt I wasn't really as involved with him, so he didn't really want that much to do with me at first. But he's never really been jealous of Martha so far. In fact, as we've been socialising a little bit more and taking her to meet friends and the such, he gets a little jealous over Martha. So if one of our friends is holding Martha, Toby will quite often sort of come over to me and say, "Mummy, hold Martha," and things like this, and cuddles and kisses. He tries to hold her, tries to take her out of mine or Phil's arms, which is interesting, and he's not too happy when we don't let him hold her completely independently, but he does seem to really like her. He tries to share his toys with her and things like that. So I think from this first month it looks as though they are going to have a nice bond, and I think he'll be very protective of his little sister.
I'm sure he will. I think big brothers always tend to be like that with the little sisters eventually. So how about Phil? How big a change has it been for him, and how has he dealt with going back to work now that his paternity leave has finished?
Unlike with Toby, where we could just kind of both devote ourselves to this new baby and in being a family, it was a slightly different dynamic because obviously I couldn't be as involved with Toby. So whilst Phil was on paternity leave, it was almost as if I sort of took control of looking after Martha and Phil of looking after Toby. So there was a little bit of a time where it almost felt as if we were living separate lives sometimes. But he absolutely adores Martha. He's a wonderful father. He loves the fact that we've now got a daughter as well. I think he's a little more delicate probably with Martha. We'd both sort of forgotten how delicate newborns could be. And things like changing nappies, it's surprising how different it is between having a girl and having a boy. So it's been a bit of a change.
For both you and for Phil, I mean, have there been any other noticeable differences that you've discovered between having had a son first time round and now a daughter second time round?
I don't know if the temperament thing between them is because Martha's a girl and Toby's a boy, or if that's just them being very different people. I have to say that with the whole nappy thing, I think both of us panic a little bit more with Martha, which is interesting, but we're probably just used to changing the boys' nappies. But Overall, it's more of a personality difference than a girl and boy difference, I think, for us.
No.
Anyway.
Obviously, having two kids is more difficult than having one, but what would you say is the toughest thing that you're experiencing about having two kids now?
I think the toughest thing so far for me personally has been getting a chance to have a shower, because if I have them both in the bathroom with me whilst I'm trying to have a shower, then maybe she's trying to bounce Martha in her chair, and he's not exactly the most gentle child in the world. Or if I have Toby in the shower with me, he wants to stay in for ages. And I'd say that side is certainly my most challenging area, and cooking as well. We've not really been eating the best home-cooked meals. It's sort of, here's a pie that can be chucked in the oven for half an hour and some veg that can be whacked in the microwave. I think sometimes it's the sort of day-to-day life stuff that all of a sudden isn't quite so simple. I can't just keep Toby occupied with some toys or something and go cook or go have a shower. There's a lot more dynamic to it nowadays, which is interesting and something I'm still trying to get used to be honest.
I mean, obviously nothing's ever easy with two kids, but has anything been easier than you expected?
I've found, because Martha's a better sleeper, I haven't found it as exhausting. I really, really thought that I'd be on my knees most days, and actually it's been a lot less tiring than I thought. And I think as well, I was a bit concerned about how Toby would react. He can be a very unpredictable child, but he's taken to Martha's presence an awful lot better and a lot easier than I thought he might do. So I think overall it has been possibly an easier transition than I was expecting.
Excellent. Well, at least that's one big positive, isn't it? I think certainly we found that going from 1 to 2, we always describe it as being less than twice as hard. And then going from 2 to 3, again, the transition not quite as great. And we remember looking back and thinking with Isaac how it is that we managed to take so long doing some things, whereas with 2, you're quite efficient and you just get on with stuff, don't you? So 1 month in, then, how would you sum up life with Martha?
Oh, it's wonderful. It really is. She is a very happy baby. She's bringing us an awful lot of joy, and I love the fact that we've got our 2 children now. So it just feels complete. I'd say that our life, our family feels very complete now that we've got the both of them.
Excellent. So, just finally, before we go, as if you haven't already got enough on your hands, you're now involved with a second blogging venture, the Lifestyle Log. So can you tell us how that's come about and what it's all about?
Absolutely. It's quite a new blog that's only been up a couple of weeks. Basically, 3 of my absolute best friends in the blogging world are Shell from the Mummington Post, Suzanne from Ghostwriter Mummy, and Jenny from Great North Mum, and we chat all day, every day by Facebook Messenger, even though we all live in completely different parts of the country and very rarely actually get to see one another. We are really close friends, and through the support that we've given each other over the last sort of year or so with babies and life changes and things like that, we basically, Shell and Suzanne initially started up the Lifestyle Log as a bit of a way of empowering mums specifically, but just basically putting a little bit of positivity and empowerment out there onto the internet, and just sort of showing about still being an individual and sort of not losing yourself in parenthood. Jenny and I absolutely loved the idea, so we got involved, and so between the 4 of us, we're just blogging about the realities, any difficulties that we've come across as well, but also how to overcome those. So my recent post last week was about keeping your you alive. So, how can you still maintain that individuality even when you are a parent? And sometimes parenthood can be all consuming. So those little things that you can do to still feel like yourself. We've done things about postpartum bodies and sort of embracing it, accepting that sometimes the days are a bit rubbish and parenting can be really, really difficult, but that doesn't make you a bad mum or dad. So it really is just sort of embracing the person behind the parent and trying to create this lovely vibe of positivity around it all. So it's really lovely. It's really inspiring to be a part of, and we're all really excited about trying to move it forward.
Oh, that sounds great, and I'm sure a lot of parents will be able to associate with the kinds of feelings that you're talking about. So if anyone is interested in finding out more, where can they find it online?
So they can go to the lifestylelog.com, and we've also got the Lifestyle Log Facebook page. Just search Lifestyle Log on Facebook or at the Lifestyle Log on Twitter, and you can find us across all of those places, and come and say hi and let us know what you do to create some positivity in your life.
Excellent. I will be along to check that out later. So, all being well, we'll be seeing Martha live and kicking at the blogging conference BML in a couple of weeks' time. So I look forward to seeing you and her there, and to buying Phil a beer, because us dads need to stick together as well. So we'll see you there, Hannah.
Okay, look forward to seeing you.
Apologies for the dodgy sound quality during that chat with Hannah. It seems that Skype wasn't dealing with the sudden arrival of summer any better than we were, but hopefully that didn't spoil your enjoyment of Hannah talking about the arrival of Martha. Do your neighbours a favour and drown out the noise of your crying baby by soundproofing your home with the latest in sound insulation. Made from the same material that lines a child's eardrums to allow them to block out 99.9% of the sound of their parents telling them off, while still being able to hear the sound of an ice cream van from half a mile away. The all-new Domestic Echo audio filter, DEF for short, will solve all your noise problems. Available now. You may remember during the Easter holidays, I had the pleasure of interviewing two of the more intelligent people we've had on the podcast, that being my sons Isaac and Toby, about our day out at Gadget Show Live during the Easter holidays. We enjoyed it so much that Isaac and I have decided to do it again. So say hello, Isaac.
Hello.
So we're recording this at the end of half-term week, and it's been quite an exciting week, hasn't it, Isaac? Can you remember what we did last weekend?
Yes, we went out to Grandma and Grandpa's house, and we had a meal there.
And Grandma and Grandpa's house is where?
In London Harrow, to be exact.
Okay, that's right. And what did we do on Saturday then when we went to Grandma and Grandpa's?
We had lunch at their house and we went to play in a play park.
That's right, yes. And then can you remember what we did on Monday?
We went to Legoland, Windsor Resort.
Yes, and it was busy, wasn't it?
Very busy as it is the school holiday.
Yeah, that's right, yeah. And then during the week, you also had a day out with Mummy, didn't you? Where did you go then?
We were going to visit our Nana, who's in hospital at the moment, which is a bit sad. But before we went there, we visited the Owls, Raptors and Reptiles Centre.
And what did you see there?
Well, in the title, we went to the reptile house, which had lots of reptiles in, such as snakes and spiders. And then there was also these owls, such as barn owls, Siberian owls, lots of different types. There were also hawks, red kites, black kites and eagles.
Wow, that's a lot of different birds, isn't it? And Toby particularly loves that, doesn't he? Because he loves his owls. In his collection of soft toys, there's an owl that he received from Santa last Christmas, isn't there? What's his name?
Hootie.
That's right, yes. And obviously, if Toby had a favourite bit of software, it would be Hootsuite. Now, anyhow, on Thursday, I took the day off work and we did one of our traditional big trips into London. Now, normally we drive into the edge of London and catch the tube in, but this time we travelled in a different way, didn't we?
We travelled on the Great Western from Clacton Station to Paddington Station.
That's right, and what did we think about travelling in by train?
I'd give it a 10 out of 10.
So is it better than going in by car?
Yes, well, for me it is, because it's the first time in a long time I've been on the Great Western to Paddington.
And The train was quite busy though, wasn't it?
Yes, we did have to stand, but soon near Seal Station we managed to get a seat.
After that, we got on the tube, didn't we? So at this point, I should explain that the boys are more than a little bit interested in the London Underground, and they'd quite happily give anyone on Mastermind a run for their money if they chose it as their specialist subject. Now, one of the first things we did in London was to get off the tube at Bayswater and head towards Queensway Station. Now, that might sound a little bit odd, but Isaac, can you explain first of all how you would get from Bayswater to Queensway if you were doing it just on the tube?
You would take the District or Circle line to Notting Hill Gate, and you would change to the Central line, and you would end up one stop down the line at Queensway.
Now that sounds reasonably straightforward, doesn't it? But can you now tell us actually what the fastest way to do that journey is?
It is to get out of Bayswater Station and then walk just up the street, and you'll find Queensway Station.
And that takes, what, it's about a minute and a half, isn't it?
Yes, 2 minutes.
Which is funny, isn't it? Sometimes you don't understand how close underground stations are to each other until you go above ground. And that's the sort of thing that gives the boys, and to be fair their father too, no small amount of joy. It's just one of those father-son things that we bond over, isn't it, Isaac?
Yes, it is.
Now, after that we did jump back onto the tube and we headed for Park Lane, where we did what exactly?
We went to see some car garages.
Which cars were they?
So we saw in one car garage 2 electric BMWs, which were the i8 and the i3. And then in the second car garage we went to, there was some BMWs in a showroom. And last one, best of all, we went to the mini showroom, which they gave us biscuits and chocolates and a drink of water at.
Yes, they were very nice to you, weren't they? They didn't mind you at all when you were climbing in and out of all the cars.
Yes, they didn't mind that at all.
So of all the cars that you saw in the showrooms, which one was your favourite?
I'll have to say the i8, because you barely ever get to sit in one.
Now, the i8 is BMW's hybrid supercar, which is a little bit expensive, isn't it? It costs about £100,000. So, Isaac, are you saving up with your pocket money to buy me that for Christmas one day?
No.
It might take you a little while to save up that amount of money, mightn't it?
Especially when I have £2 each week pocket money.
So if you had to give the car showrooms a score out of 10, what would you give them?
An 8.
That sounds pretty good, doesn't it? So what would it take for you to give them a score of 10 out of 10?
Well, if in the mini showroom they had put the horn button somewhere more obvious, and it didn't go off while I was in the car, that would have probably made me give it a 9. And also because in the BMW dealer's showroom, there wasn't my father's car, the 4 Series, which is quite surprising.
Yes, that was the one thing that was missing, wasn't it? So if they'd had those things, you'd have given it a 10 out of 10, would you?
Yes, I would.
Okay, so after a good hour and a half or so in the car showrooms, we then caught a bus to Piccadilly. And where did we go for lunch?
We went to Chinatown, right near Leicester Square.
And what did we eat in Chinatown?
We had wugok and dim sum and some noodles and prawns and lots of other things.
That's right, yes. So regular readers of the blog will know that food, and Chinese food in particular, forms a big part of our family life. So what was your favourite dish, Isaac?
Well, I'll have to say wugok because they make that very well, and dim sum would come straight after that.
And do you know what goes into wugok?
No.
Yeah, it's made from a paste that's made from taro, or yam as we tend to know it better here, and it's then deep fried, isn't it? Which sounds very unappetising, but actually it's yummy, isn't it?
It's delicious. You should try it if you haven't tried it before.
Yes, and it's funny because that was always, when I was your age, that was Daddy's favourite dish as well. So You didn't know that, did you?
No, I did not know that.
So that was lunch, and then after lunch, where did we go after that in the afternoon?
We went up towards Arsenal Station to see Emirates Stadium.
That's right, and why did we go there? Because which team does Daddy support?
We support Arsenal.
That's right, so we went to the Emirates Stadium and we went on the stadium tour, didn't we? So Isaac, can you just talk us through what we did on the tour?
So first we got ourselves a screen which you would watch to see what other bits of the stadium were like and what it would be like when lots of people would be there and the football people would be there. So first we headed into the director's box.
That's right, yes, and that was very smart, wasn't it?
Yes, there were lots of statues made of metal of people who have been a big part of Arsenal, such as the Arsene Wenger.
That's right, yes, and when we were in the director's box, you were able to go out and sit in their seats, weren't you? So you sat in the seat where the chairman sits, didn't you?
Yes, I did.
And then after the director's box, we went to the Diamond Club. Now, do you want to explain what that is?
The Diamond Club is where pretty much all the football players go and celebrities sometimes and people who are generally quite wealthy and they want to have a party in the stadium and support Arsenal.
Yes, they have very smart dining rooms, don't they, that are done in a very particular style that's called Art Deco, which dates back to the 1930s, and that's done to replicate how the inside of the stadium, the dining rooms and the halls looks at the old ground Highbury. So after we'd done the director's box and the Diamond Club, we went downstairs, didn't we? And we saw the players' entrance and we saw the changing rooms too. What did you think of those?
Cool, they had lots of different shirts there and we got to go into the Arsene Wenger's office, which is just out of the home changing room.
Yeah, that's right. And then unfortunately we couldn't go down onto the pitch because actually they're relaying it at the moment, so there is no pitch, it's just all sand and earth diggers, but we did get a chance to go into the interview rooms, didn't we, and the press room as well.
Yes, I did a talk to the public and that was quite fun, but we did get to go outside. When we were at the Diamond Club, we got to sit on some chairs outside, and at the end of the tour, you were able to go outside and sit on some of the chairs they have.
That's right, we were able to go up into the main stand, weren't we, and get quite close to the pitch then. And what did you think of the stadium overall?
It was very large, but awesome.
That's right, isn't it? Because on a match day, it holds as many as 60,000 people, and we don't often see places that are that big, do we?
No, but sometimes you can when you go to Wembley Stadium.
And do you think maybe one day you'd like to come and see a football match with Daddy there?
Yes.
We'll have to try and do that sometime soon. So, if we were to give the Emirates Stadium a score out of 10, what would we give it?
10.
Oh, excellent. So, do you think maybe we will go back there again in the future?
Yes.
So, by the time we'd finished that, it was quite late in the afternoon, wasn't it? And then we headed back to Paddington and got on the train home. What a big day out it was, wasn't it?
Yes, it was a very big day out.
Now, the big question is going to be, where do we go for our next big trip? Maybe we can talk about that on a future episode of the podcast. But until then, let's say goodbye to the listeners, shall we? So, say goodbye, Isaac.
Bye.
And that's it for another episode of the Meet the Parents podcast. We'll be back next week, but in the meantime, you can find Hannah online at buddingsmiles.co.uk and on Twitter at buddingsmiles, and you can find me at slouchingtowardsthatcham.com and on Twitter at thatchamdad. You can download this podcast on iTunes and on Android devices, on our website at meettheparentspodcast.com, and via a variety of podcasting apps. And do please give us a follow on Twitter at ParentsPodcast and Facebook at facebook.com/meettheparentspodcast. So thank you very much for listening, and do please join us again next week. Good night.